You're watching Forsaken Joe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy the story. Let's begin. It was a slow Sunday in Phoenix, the kind of day that feels like nothing's ever going to change. I was at the kitchen table, tapping away at invoices, while Jenna drifted around the house like she didn't live here anymore. She didn't say much. She barely even looked at me, just sipping from her glass of wine, scrolling on her phone, her face down like she was trying to disappear. I didn't mind the quiet. Honestly, I'd gotten used to it. She was standing by the sink when she dropped it. "I just want to focus on myself for once," she said, her voice flat, almost rehearsed. I didn't look up from the spreadsheet in front of me. "Fine," I said, "but not on my dime." She didn't say anything for a moment, like she was waiting for some kind of argument. When it didn't come, her eyes flicked to mine, searching for some kind of reaction. "Okay," she muttered, like it wasn't even worth pushing me on anymore. I went back to typing, keeping it short. "You made your choice." She stood there a beat longer, like she was still expecting me to start yelling or pleading, but I wasn't going to. I'd heard enough. If that's what she wanted, then fine. I'd make sure she got exactly what she asked for. Nothing more, nothing less. And that was the second surprise for her. I wasn't going to fight for her, not anymore. She finished her wine, a little quicker this time, and went upstairs. I stayed at the table, tapping at the keys, already planning my next move. Monday morning was quiet. I left one toothbrush in the cup, took the other out. I set one mug on the counter, left the other in the cabinet. No need to make a point out of it, just let the shift happen. We passed each other in the hallway like we were strangers. No eye contact, no words. She didn't ask where the other toothbrush went, and I didn't ask why she'd spent the last 2 days pretending I didn't exist. I didn't want to make it awkward, but it was. I rerouted my direct deposit to a new account, set up a separate bank, and moved just enough to keep the old one from going into the red. I didn't need her seeing that. Not that I expected her to check. She wasn't exactly involved in the day-to-day anymore. Still, I didn't want to give her an excuse. I made the changes at work too. Nothing big, just a couple of small tweaks to avoid questions, to keep the space between us tidy. When one of the guys at the office asked how my weekend went, I gave a smile and shrugged. "Nothing special," I said. "Quiet." He didn't push. That night, I sat at the kitchen table while Jenna scrolled on her phone, her face bathed in blue light. I could see her checking Instagram or whatever else she did when she didn't have the energy to talk. It was a routine now, but this time there was something different in the air. It felt less like a pattern and more like a decision. I opened my laptop, reset the passwords, and disabled her access to the subscriptions we'd shared. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify. I didn't need to explain myself. She knew what was happening. Maybe she didn't want to admit it yet, but she wasn't going to keep dipping into things I'd earned. I glanced over at her as I typed. She didn't look up. There was no anger, no confrontation, just the quiet clicking of the keyboard. I'd been expecting a fight, but instead, she just let me do it. Her silence wasn't the same as before. It wasn't avoidance or indifference. This time, it felt calculated. She'd chosen her side. I finished with the subscriptions, then locked my phone and pushed back from the table. I wasn't sure what I expected from her, but I didn't get it. She didn't ask why I just shut down everything. She didn't tell me I was being petty. Instead, she took a long sip of her wine and flipped to another screen like she was pretending it didn't matter. Maybe it didn't, for her anyway. I grabbed a glass of water from the fridge, walked to the bedroom, and shut the door behind me. I didn't need to check in on her. If she wasn't going to fight, I wouldn't either. She'd made her decision. She said she wanted space. I was just making sure she had it. By Tuesday, I started unlinking her from everything. Utilities, internet, Netflix, the pet insurance, anything that tied her to me. I didn't feel anything when I did it. Just another task to take care of. I watched her in the kitchen as I made the changes, pretending like she didn't notice. But I could see the little things. The way she left her dishes on the counter instead of cleaning up. Like she was testing me, seeing how far she could push. She skipped the groceries again, and I was starting to wonder if she'd planned it that way, leaving the fridge empty on purpose. Maybe to make me feel like the one still holding things together. But I wasn't about to play that game. If she wanted to make a mess, she could clean it up herself. That night, she reheated frozen pasta, then left the microwave door open, the splatters of sauce all over the inside. I didn't say a word, I just cleaned it up. It was a small thing, but it mattered to me. When I was done, I set the sponge down, wiped my hands, and turned to her. She was on the couch, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't even noticed. She looked up when I walked back in the room, and for the first time in days I could see a crack in her mask. "You didn't have to do that," she said, voice soft, almost apologetic. I didn't hesitate. "I heard what you said." Her eyes flickered. She didn't know how to respond to that, but she didn't have to. I was doing exactly what she wanted, wasn't I? She wanted out, and I was helping her get there. I grabbed my phone and called the landlord. It wasn't a casual conversation. I asked about separating the lease, how it would work, what the steps were. The guy was a little confused, but he didn't care enough to question me. When I hung up, I realized how real it was. The idea of cutting ties completely, no cross wires, no excuses. I wasn't sure if she had thought it through, but I had, and I was already taking the steps. Jenna stayed quiet for a while after that, her face buried in her phone again. Maybe she was processing it, maybe she wasn't. I couldn't tell. But either way, it didn't matter. I was moving forward. Wednesday morning, I removed Jenna as an authorized user from my credit cards. I shut down our travel rewards account. It wasn't a big deal, not to me anyway. The small acts felt necessary, like locking doors that had been left wide open for too long. The accounts, the points, the shared financial thread. None of it was going to be hers anymore. If she wanted to focus on herself, it wouldn't be on my time or my dime. At lunch, I pulled out enough emergency cash to cover a couple of weeks, stashed it in a fireproof bag along with the car title and my birth certificate. I didn't know when I'd need it, but I wasn't about to wait until it was too late. That evening, she came home late, carrying a shopping bag from a boutique she swore off 6 months ago. The same one where she'd said, "I'm done with impulse buys." "Big meeting tomorrow," she said, holding up the bag like it was proof of something important. "Fancy place." I didn't even look at the bag. "Enjoy it," I said, voice flat, my eyes still on the laptop. I didn't care. I didn't even want to. She paused, like she was expecting more, maybe some feedback or a question, but I was already getting up to leave the room. I knew the routine. She'd try to sell me the story of the day, and I wasn't interested anymore. The words felt hollow now, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I pulled my phone from my pocket and booked a one-way train ticket to Portland, scheduled to leave Sunday morning. A city where I didn't know anyone, a fresh start, just as clean as the break I was making with her. She called out from the other room, asking if I was coming back down to watch something on TV, but I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I didn't even need to explain. As I hit confirm on the ticket, I felt the weight of it. I was done. Thursday, I called the leasing office. Confirmed that I could opt out of the lease after this month, as long as Jenna reapplied on her own. No need to make it complicated. Clean break. No more shared obligations. I hung up, feeling something close to finality. It was all in motion now. Afterward, I drained our joint checking account to just above zero, leaving enough to avoid any fees. The alerts on my new account were set up, all notifications linked to my phone. She wouldn't be getting anything without me knowing about it. If she needed help, she'd have to figure it out herself. That afternoon, when she asked where the card was, I didn't flinch. I just looked up from the kitchen counter. I took my name back. Her eyes flickered for a second, then she laughed. "Seriously?" she said, like I was joking. I didn't smile. "Yeah." Her face stayed blank for a second longer than it should have. Then she just nodded, like she'd heard it, but didn't want to deal with it. She grabbed her phone, probably checking her balance, but I wasn't watching anymore. Later that night, she left. Another late night out. I didn't ask where she was going. Didn't care. She came back just before midnight, looking a little too composed for someone who hadn't planned the night. She kicked off her shoes at the door and then stood in the hallway, a little too still for the usual post-outing buzz. "Did you see my phone charger?" she asked, voice laced with something I couldn't quite place. Maybe annoyance, maybe expectation. I didn't even look up from my book. "No." Her eyes shifted, then narrowed. "I left it on the kitchen counter." I didn't say anything. She walked toward the kitchen anyway, checked, then glanced back at me. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said. I didn't move it this time. She stood there a second, like she was about to say something, maybe call me out on how petty I was being, but then just shrugged. She turned back to the hallway, walked to the bedroom, and shut the door quietly behind her. I didn't care. I was moving forward. She could keep checking, looking for what she thought she still had. But I'd already crossed the line. Friday, I woke up to a text from Jenna, her tone tight and clipped. She'd just checked her paycheck, the one that had been directly linked to our joint account, the one I'd drained. She was furious and embarrassed all at once. "Why the hell is my paycheck bouncing?" I didn't hesitate, just typed the response and hit send. "Update your info, it's free." A moment later, her phone buzzed again. This time, she was trying to argue, her frustration leaking through every word. "This is bullshit, Caleb. Why would you do this?" I let it sit for a few seconds before I responded. "No need to rush. You said you wanted to focus on yourself," I typed. "This is what that looks like." There was no reply for a long time. Instead, I watched her last message go from red to blue, indicating she'd read it. Then it came, "You're leaving me in the dark." The power bill was overdue. I knew that. But I wasn't about to cover it for her anymore. I didn't say anything for a while. She didn't need a response. Not anymore. That evening, I moved on to the next step. I went into the old email account we used for bills, the one that had everything set up, utilities, subscriptions, the whole mess of it. I turned it off, shut it down. Everything I had was now separate, clean, no overlap. Jenna didn't mention it. She probably didn't even check. Or maybe she didn't want to see what was happening. Instead, I saw a few stories pop up on her Instagram later. They were vague, cryptic, shots of her sitting alone in coffee shops or looking out windows. The captions said things like betrayal and finding myself. I didn't care enough to read them all, but what stuck out was how no one responded. Her friends used to comment, used to like every post. But now, silence. No one was biting. I couldn't bring myself to feel bad. I had done exactly what she asked. She wanted out. And now she was seeing the full weight of what that meant. Over the weekend, Jenna tried a few new tactics. First, her mom called, a long voicemail about how I was being unreasonable, how she never thought things would get to this point. I didn't call her back. I wasn't interested in anyone else's opinion on what I was doing. I had already made up my mind. Then long messages started popping up on my phone, each one starting with some version of, "We need to talk." She sent a photo of the empty fridge, almost a silent accusation. It wasn't about the food. It was about control. She was trying to make me feel guilty, make me think I was the one responsible for her mess. I didn't let myself feel anything. I didn't engage with her emotions. I answered each one with facts. The lease was in her name too. She needed to sort out her own finances, and I had no intention of helping. Not anymore. I kept my responses short, the kind of answers you'd give a stranger asking for a favor you had no intention of granting. "Let me know when you've updated your info. I'm not buying groceries for 2 anymore. Figure out your own bills." She didn't reply to most of them, but that didn't stop her. That night, I came home to a text from her. "They're going to kick me out." I didn't need to ask who they were. I'd seen the landlord's 7-day notice posted on the door. I sat for a minute, letting her panic settle in. Then I replied, "Apply in your name." Same as any adult would do. She didn't like that. I knew she wouldn't. But I wasn't going to backpedal. She made this choice. She said she wanted space, and I was giving it to her. Clear, unambiguous space. A while later, another text came through. "I can't do this alone." I didn't hesitate before I answered. "You said you wanted to." There was a long pause, then nothing. I wasn't sure if she was holding out hope or just letting the weight of it all sink in. I couldn't afford to care either way. The decision had already been made. She had chosen herself. Now she'd have to face the consequences alone. Sunday morning, I packed a small duffel bag, just enough to get me through the first week. I didn't even look back as I locked the door behind me. The place that used to feel like home wasn't mine anymore. I grabbed my backpack, slipped out the door, and drove to the station. The train ride was long, but it didn't matter. It wasn't about getting there quickly. It was about getting there clean, no distractions, no baggage. I was gone. By the time I arrived in Portland, the air felt different. Something about the rain, the way it soaked into the streets and made everything shiny and fresh. I rented a tiny room in a place that didn't care about who I was. It just wanted me to pay, and I was fine with that. I opened a P.O. box, got a new local SIM card, and updated everything to match my name. Everything that had my old address, old bank account, old life, gone. By the end of the day, I was a new person, a blank slate. I didn't check my phone until the next morning, Monday. When I did, I had texts waiting, screenshots, failed charges, declined rent payments. The utilities had been cut. It was a slow, deliberate unraveling, and she was still looking for someone to pull it all back together. I replied, keeping it short, like I always did now. Live for yourself means funding yourself. She didn't like that. Of course she didn't. She tried again, pleading this time. There was no subtlety, just desperation in her words. Please, Caleb, I need help. This isn't fair. I didn't feel bad. I wasn't going to give in, no matter how much she wanted me to. I sent her the leasing office's contact info and a link to an online bank. Set it up yourself, I wrote. This is on you now. She tried one more time. I miss you. I didn't even need to think about it. I typed back, steady. That's not the same as changing. There was no reply, no further texts, just silence. I wasn't surprised. She'd said she wanted to change, but all she was doing was asking for things to go back to the way they were, and that wasn't going to happen, not anymore. 3 days later, she showed up in Portland. I could tell right away. The worn-out backpack, the haggard look on her face. She had taken a long bus ride, probably with whatever she had left, her sold belongings stuffed into whatever pockets they could fit. She texted me when she arrived, saying she was at a cafe near my place. A co-working space, to be exact. I wasn't surprised. It was exactly the kind of place I would have told her to meet me. Neutral, in between. A space where nothing personal was tied to either of us anymore. I walked in, found her sitting at a corner table, staring at her phone like it could save her from what was coming. She looked up when I approached, her eyes a little red, but mostly just tired. Caleb, she said, her voice quiet, but full of that same expectation. The same thing she always did when she thought a soft word could undo everything. I sat down across from her without saying anything. She didn't wait long before she spoke. I made a mistake, she started, the words coming out too fast, like she was rehearsing them. I was wrong. I know things haven't been great, but I want to try again. A second chance. I didn't say anything at first. Instead, I slid a manila envelope across the table, the edges worn like I'd held it too tightly. Her eyes flicked to it, then back to me, like she wasn't sure if she should open it or if she already knew. I didn't push. I just let her do it on her own terms. She opened it, and I watched the moment the words hit her. The separation agreement. Clean, no debts, no joint anything. Just final. She closed it slowly, folding the paper back in half, her fingers stiff. She looked up at me, searching for something in my face, maybe hoping to find a crack. "This is cold," she said, her voice shaking a little. I looked at her, then at the paper in her hands. "This is clear." The silence hung for a beat, then she exhaled like she was giving up a breath she'd been holding for too long. Her shoulders sagged a little. "You're really doing this, huh?" she asked, like she was still holding on to something, some last thread. I nodded. "I am." She didn't speak for a while, just fiddling with the corner of the paper. Then she looked up at me, her eyes searching, trying to find the version of me that used to care. "Will you ever come back?" she asked. I shook my head. "Number? Not to that version of us." Her face fell, but she didn't argue. Didn't try to convince me. I guess she already knew. She was right in front of me, but it felt like she was a million miles away. That version of us was gone, and no matter how much she wanted to rewrite it, it was too late. She stood up slowly, folding the paper in her hands. "I'll sign it," she said, barely above a whisper. I watched her leave, her steps quieter than when she walked in, like she was walking away from everything she thought she knew. I didn't stop her. I wasn't going to. And when she disappeared out the door, I let out a breath, and I finally felt the weight lift. It was done. I walked home in the rain, feeling the weight of the day slide off with every step. The apartment was quiet when I got back, empty in a way that was both strange and comforting. I didn't waste time. I went to the store, grabbed just what I needed. No extra, no surplus. A few things for dinner. I wasn't looking to fill the space, just to survive. When I got back, I unpacked in silence. The kitchen was bare, but I didn't mind. I put everything away, then grabbed a sticky note from the counter and stuck it inside my closet on the door. Respect is not negotiable. It felt important to remind myself of that. A buzz from my phone interrupted the quiet. It was her. I signed, "Thank you for making it clear enough to choose." I stared at the message for a minute. She was gone, but there she was, still trying to grab a piece of me, some last shred of understanding. I typed back 2 words. "Be well." That was it. No more explanations, no more anything. I moved on. That night I did my laundry. It felt small, but good. There was something about the rhythm of it. Sorting the clothes, folding them, putting them away where they belonged. I cooked for myself. Nothing fancy, just enough to get through the night. The kitchen smelled different, not like her, just like me. I set up new alerts on my phone, ones that didn't include anyone but me. No joint accounts, no shared passwords, nothing left over from the old version of things. When I finally crawled into bed, I fell asleep without thinking about what might happen next. For the first time in a long time, I didn't wake up to any texts, no reminders of her, no unfinished business. I slept without dreams because this time, nothing was pending.